Here's the next chapter of Danny, the Champion of the World. This is chapter 3, and it's called Cars and Kites and Fire Balloons. My father was a fine mechanic. People who lived miles away used to bring their cars to him for repair rather than take them to the nearest garage. He loved engines. A petrol engine is sheer magic, he said to me once. Just imagine being able to take 1,000 different bits of metal, and if you fit them all together in a certain way, and then if you feed them a little oil and petrol, and if you press a little switch, suddenly these bits of metal will all come to life, and they will purr and hum and roar. They will make the wheels of the motor car go whizzing round at fantastic speeds. It was inevitable that I too should fall in love with engines and cars. Don't forget that even before I could walk, the workshop had been my playroom, for where else could my father have put me so that he could keep an eye on me all day long? My toys were the greasy cogs and springs and pistons that lay around all over the place, and these, I can promise you, were far more fun to play with than most of the plastic stuff children are given these days. So almost from birth I began training to be a mechanic. But now that I was 5 years old, there was the problem of school to think about. It was the law that parents must send their children to school at the age of 5, and my father knew about this. We were in the workshop, I remember, on my 5th birthday, when the talk about school started. I was helping my father to fit new brake linings to a rear wheel of a big Ford, when suddenly he said to me, "You know something interesting, Danny? You must be easily the best 5-year-old mechanic in the world." This was the greatest compliment he'd ever paid me, and I was enormously pleased. "You like this work, don't you?" he said. "All this messing about with engines." "Oh, I absolutely love it," I said. He turned and faced me and laid a hand gently on my shoulder. "I want to teach you to be a great mechanic," he said. "And when you grow up, I hope you will become a famous designing engineer, a man who designs new and better engines for cars and aeroplanes, and you will need a really good education for that. But I don't want to send you to school quite yet. In another 2 years you will have learnt enough here with me to be able to take a small engine completely to pieces and put it back together again, all by yourself, and after that you can go to the engineer school." You probably think my father was crazy trying to teach a young child to be an expert mechanic, but as a matter of fact he wasn't crazy at all. I learnt fast and I adored every moment of it, and luckily for us nobody came knocking at the door to see why I wasn't going to school. So 2 more years went by, and at the age of 7, believe it or not, I really could take a small engine to pieces and put it together again. I mean properly, to pieces, pistons, crankshafts and all. The time had come to start school. My school was in the nearest village, 2 miles away. We didn't have a car of our own, we couldn't afford one, but the walk took only half an hour, and I didn't mind that in the least. My father came with me, he insisted on coming, and when school ended at 4 in the afternoon, he was always there waiting to walk me home. And so life went on. The world I lived in consisted only of the filling station, the workshop, the caravan and school. And of course the woods and the fields and the streams in the countryside around. But I was never bored. It was impossible to be bored in my father's company. He was too sparky a man for that. Plots and plans and new ideas came flying off him like sparks from a grindstone. "There's a good wind today," he said one Saturday morning. "Just right for flying a kite. Let's make a kite, Danny." So we made a kite. He showed me how to splice 4 thin sticks together in the shape of a star, and with 2 more sticks across the middle to brace it. Then we cut up an old blue shirt of his and stretched the material across the framework of the kite. We added a long tail made of thread with little leftover pieces of the shirt. There's a picture of it. There's the kite up in the sky. We found a ball of string in the workshop, and he showed me how to attach the string to the framework so that the kite would be properly balanced in flight. Together we walked to the top of the hill, behind the filling station to release the kite. I found it hard to believe that this object, made only of a few sticks and a piece of old shirt, would actually fly. I held the string while my father held the kite, and the moment he let it go, it caught the wind and whoosh, it soared upwards like a huge blue bird. "Let out some more string, Danny. Go on, as much as you like." Higher and higher soared the kite. Soon it was just a small blue dot dancing in the sky miles above my head, and it was thrilling to stand there holding on to something that was so far away and so very much alive. This far-away thing was tugging and struggling on the end of the line like a big fish. "Let's walk it back to the caravan," my father said. So we walked down the hill again, with me holding the string and the kite, still pulling fiercely on the other end. And when we came to the caravan, we were careful not to get the string tangled up in the apple tree, and we brought it all the way back to the front steps. "Tie it to the steps," my father said. "Will it stay up?" I asked. "It will if the wind doesn't drop," he said. And the wind didn't drop. And I'll tell you something amazing. That kite stayed up there all through the night. And at breakfast time next morning, the small blue dot was still dancing and swooping in the sky. After breakfast, I hauled it down and hung it carefully against a wall in the workshop for another day. Not long after that, on a lovely still evening when there was no breath of wind anywhere, my father said to me, "This is just the right weather for a fire balloon. Let's make a fire balloon." He must have planned this one beforehand, because he already had the 4 big sheets of tissue paper and a spot of glue from Mr. Whitten's bookshop in the village, and now, using only the paper, the glue, a pair of scissors and a piece of thin wire, he made me a huge, magnificent fire balloon in less than 15 minutes. In the opening at the bottom he tied a ball of cotton wool, and we were ready to go. It was getting dark when we carried it outside into the field behind the caravan. We had with us a bottle of methylated spirits and some matches. I held the balloon upright while my father crouched underneath it and carefully poured a little mess onto the ball of cotton wool. "Here goes," he said, putting a match to the cotton wool. "Hold the sides out as much as you can, Danny." A tall yellow flame leapt up from the ball of cotton wool and went right up inside the balloon. "It'll catch on fire," I cried. "No, it won't. Watch." Between us, we held the sides of the balloon out as much as possible to keep them away from the flame in the early stages. But as soon as the hot air filled the balloon and the danger was over, "She's nearly ready," my father said. "Can you feel it floating?" "Yes," I said. "Yes. Shall we let go?" "Not yet. Wait a bit. Wait until she's tugging to fly away." "She's tugging now," I said. Right, let go." Slowly, majestically, and in absolute silence, our wonderful balloon began to rise up into the night sky. "It flies," I shouted, clapping my hands and jumping about. "It flies, it flies." My father was nearly as excited as I was. "It's a beauty," he said. "This one's a real beauty. You never know how they're going to turn out until you fly them. Each one's different." Up and up it went, rising very fast now in the cool night air. It was like a magic fireball in the sky. "Will other people see it?" I asked. "I'm sure they will, Danny. It's high enough now for them to see it for miles around." "What will they think it is, Dad?" "A flying saucer," my father said. "They'll probably call the police." A small breeze had taken hold of the balloon and was carrying it away in the direction of the village. "Let's follow it," my father said, "and with luck we'll find it when it comes down." There's a picture of it up in the sky. We ran to the road and we ran along the road. We kept running. "She's coming down," my father shouted. "The flame's nearly gone out." We lost sight of it when the flame went out, but we guessed roughly which field it would be landing in, and we climbed over a gate and ran towards the place. For half an hour we searched the field in the darkness, but we couldn't find our balloon. The next morning I went back alone to search again. I searched 4 big fields before I found it. It was lying in a corner of the field that was full of black and white cows. The cows were all standing round it and staring at it with huge wet eyes. But it hadn't harmed them one bit, so I carried it home and hung it up alongside the kite against the wall in the workshop for another day. "You can fly the kite all by yourself any time you like," my father said, "but you must never try and fly the fire balloon unless I'm with you. It's extremely dangerous." "All right," I said. "Promise me you'll never try to fly it alone, Danny." "I promise," I said. Then there was the tree house, which we built high up in the top of the big oak at the bottom of our field, and the bow and 4 long ash saplings, and the arrows flighted with tail feathers of partridge and pheasant, and stilts that made me 10 feet tall, and a boomerang that came back and fell at my feet nearly every time I threw it. And for my last birthday, there'd been something that was more fun perhaps than all the rest. For 2 days before my birthday, I'd been forbidden to enter the workshop because my father was in there working on a secret. And on the birthday morning, out came an amazing machine made from 4 bicycle wheels and several large soap boxes. This was no ordinary whizzer. It was a brake pedal, a steering wheel, a comfortable seat, and a strong front bumper. It took the shock of the crash. I called it Soapole, and just about every day I would take it up to the top of the hill in the field behind the filling station and come shooting down there at incredible speeds, riding it like Bronco over the bumps. So you can see that being 8 years old and living with my father was a lot of fun. But I was impatient to be 9. I reckoned that being 9 would be even more fun than being 8. As it turned out, I was not altogether right about this. My 9th birthday was certainly more exciting than any of the others, but not all of it was exactly what you'd call fun. And there he is, look, going down the hill in his go-kart that his dad made for him. And that's the end of chapter 3.